Hello and welcome to a very special biopic episode of Movies You Missed podcast.
Yeah.
I'm Vee.
I'm John.
And welcome back if you've joined us before. If you're brand new to the podcast, thank you so much for stopping by. We are two industry veterans who worked in film and TV for over 25 years combined, and we've been friends since we were 12 years old.
That is very true. That's a little bio about us on this biopic episode.
And so every week we each pick a movie and love to recommend it to you without spoiling it.
Hell yes. No spoilers here at Movies You Missed podcast.
And as many of you know, before we like to dive into the movies we picked this week, which this week's theme is very niche, we decided to go with biopic movies starring Emil Hirsch.
Yeah, and it didn't really start out that way.
No,
It just,
not
you
at
just
all.
so happened to be in both these picks.
Because you picked Lords of Dogtown, and I tried to figure out what would be a good pairing for it.
Oh, that's true. I did have my pick chosen for this episode first. That's
Yes, and so in response, and what I thought would be a good companion would be his movie Into the Wild.
Right. There we go, which I had never seen.
And I'd actually never seen your pick.
Yeah, it's one of those episodes, everybody. Buckle up.
Yes, definitely buckle up, because I think it's going to get interesting.
Oh, boy.
But before we dive into those movies, most of you know we love to discuss the new movies we saw in theaters or on streaming this week.
One of my favorite pieces of Movies You Missed podcast.
And I unfortunately didn't get a chance to go to the theaters this week, but John, I believe you did.
That's correct, I did.
And what'd you see?
Well, it took me a little bit too long, but I did finally get to see it because I did want to see it in 4DX, but did not get the opportunity to do that. So I went and saw it in the regular theater. I'm talking about the Glenn Powell led, and yes, absolutely, Glenn Powell led. Nothing
Right?
against Anthony Ramos. He was still pretty good, but boy, oh boy, were you correct about the lead actress in this movie. If you were not paying attention to that at all from last week, I went and saw Twisters, everybody.
Awesome! Oh, I can't wait to have this discussion.
Oh, so much fun. It was a blast. I had a great time with it. I do definitely wish that I saw it in 4DX. However, still an awesome movie. Glenn Powell was awesome. Our audience knows I'm a fan. And now, V, you are as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, great movie. A lot of good times. Great special effects. Other than all of that, very predictable, especially in the first 15 minutes. Like, oh, well, they're gonna... But we don't do spoilers here, but overall, like I said, I would give it like a 7.8 out of 10. Like, it was a good time. The Twisters were awesome. It's definitely a little bit formulaic, especially since it kind of follows along the lines of Twister. There are actually no nods
Other
to
than
any of the characters
No,
of the
no.
original one.
There's
but
a
at the
prop,
same time,
right?
absolutely.
Which was
There's
cool.
definitely a prop. Yeah.
I was surprised, though, that there aren't any nods to the previous characters from Twister.
Oh, totally. Yeah, when it ended, I was like, wow, there's no nod to Dusty, Doppler,
Nobody.
any of them. And what's weird is that, well, again, we don't do spoilers here. However, still a very good movie. Check it out in theaters. It should be out for the next, 3 or 4 weeks, I hope. Even though Deadpool Wolverine is completely dominating the box office right now. But again, like overall, it was good. It was good. Like, it wasn't bad. It was fine. Like, I had a good time with it. I don't know if I'd own it, but I liked it. You know, now that Amy wants to watch it, maybe I would get the 4K. I don't know. It was good, though. It was fun. I liked it.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, well, we both did.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
that's-
liked it less than you did, but I still had a good time.
Oh, well, it's not the best movie of the year, but, like, I still had a good time with it.
Well, I always love the discussions we have regarding the new movies we've seen.
Yes.
John, are you ready to center on sunny California in the 70s?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Take it away.
All right, well, I'm ready to do this. I think everybody should grab their sex wax to wax their surfboards or their skateboards and dive right into this movie from 2005, written by Stacy Peralta, directed by Catherine Hardwicke. This is 2005's Lords of Dogtown. And the cast list is pretty awesome. I'll begin with Heath Ledger, Emil Hirsch, Victor Rasek, Johnny Knoxville, John Robinson, Rebecca De Mornay, Nikki Reed, America Ferrera, Sofia Vergara, in a very, very early role of hers, Melanie Diaz, and the final on-screen performance by one of the greatest comedians that has graced the comedy world, Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
I love Mitch Hedberg. He was a great comedian, and a lot of his stuff is still very relevant and very hilarious. So I do tend to watch a lot of his old clips on YouTube, or they pop up on like an Instagram story every now and then, and it's always great to see him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So Lords of Dogtown is set in the 70s, the surfing 70s, if you will. Skateboarding was really not a thing with any of these guys. We did mention that this is a biopic episode, so every actor in this movie is actually playing a real person, except for a few characters, that were meshed into one, based on several other different people, which liberties are always taken in a situation like this, so you don't get too jumbled up. Not like Day After Tomorrow or Independence Day, where there's 45 characters introduced in the first 15 minutes, and a lot of them fall off, and we're only stuck with the remaining few. This movie, actually, we follow just about everybody that we're introduced to from beginning to end of this movie. And again, I mentioned this is set in the 70s. The skateboarding trend has just started to take off. Surfing was really the big thing for a lot of these guys in Venice, California. And V, you and I have spent a lot of time in Venice, California over the last 20 plus years. I used to love getting really high and walking around the Venice boardwalk. Can't really do that anymore because it is unfortunately a complete shithole now, but it used to be really awesome.
Yes, I usually stayed further south and did my surfing in Manhattan Beach.
Oh, there you go. Manhattan Beach is really nice too.
Venice was way too grubby for me.
I actually never surfed in Southern California. I surfed twice and I surfed in Hawaii, and I didn't really like it. I did skateboard, though, for a little while. I did have a World Industries deck and World Industries grip tape. If you all may remember World Industries, they might still be around, but I kind of lost my interest in skateboarding around the end of 8th grade because I started to get more into playing music, and for whatever reason, I just stopped riding a skateboard. But anyway, this movie, Lords of Dogtown, centered on Jay Adams, Tony Alva, Stacy Peralta, Skip Engblom. These guys all hang out in Venice. Skip owns a surfboard shop. He makes surfboards and starts to create this club of skateboarders when actually Mitch Hedberg's character comes in and shows them these wheels that have just been created from oil. So all the guys, Jay, Tony, and Stacy, all grab these wheels, put them on their skateboards, and obviously they're loving it because they're going a lot faster. There's a little bit more precision in these wheels. They also have their trucks a little bit loosened so they can do, the maneuvering and the weevil wobble and all that kind of stuff. And they start to really fall in love with skateboarding, not so much surfing anymore. As things start to progress in this story, Skip creates a club of Zephyr skateboarders, and he wants to start taking these guys to skateboard competitions throughout Southern California and winning them trophies and, starting to make a name for not only just Skip himself, but for Jay and Tony and Stacy, so that they can maybe find sponsors in the future and maybe run their own team at some point as well. Later on, we're introduced to Topper Burks, who's played by Johnny Knoxville. He is actually loosely based on a gentleman named Bunker Spreckles. Bunker Spreckles was
what a name.
I know, crazy name. Again, 70s, so, probably hippie parents. He was actually Clark Gable's stepson and an heir to the Spreckles Sugar Company. So at one point, he actually was awarded his inheritance of $50 million. He started traveling the world, meeting up with skateboarders. Very tragically, ended up dying suddenly at the age of 27 in Hawaii from unknown causes. He just dropped dead, very unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah, but going back to Topper Burks, who Johnny Knoxville plays, he shows up as basically the guy that's going to take all of these skaters, Jay, Tony, and Stacy, national. And Skip is a little weary of Topper at first because Skip is really just trying to keep this whole thing kind of together and, as like a family. And he really loves these kids, Jay, Tony, and Stacy. But Topper's got bigger aspirations for these three guys. He's starting to, fill their head with the fact that they could own a skate company. They could make a lot of money doing this. And Skip is getting on a lot of these guys that are thinking that this might be a good idea to kind of branch out. That, they really didn't care about money or being famous or anything like that until they started getting put into magazines by Topper and by working their way through the skate competitions in the 70s. And for the rest of the movie, we are treated to the rise of Jay Adams, Tony Alva, and Stacy Peralta in the world of skateboarding. A lot of this is actually done on their own. However, Tony Alva does jump in with Topper Burks and tries to also recruit Jay and Stacy as well to ride that wave with him since they've grown up together. They are, they're bros. It's the 70s. It's Southern California. I've never really been one to call a lot of people bro. I'm more of a dude type of a sayer. Mm-hmm. So it still kind of makes me laugh when they're like, bro, come on, bros. Like when Tony takes them into that empty pool. He's like, you know what, bros? We're going to be the first to ride this wave. Like everybody's like, bro. And when Skip's like, hey, bro, you look hungry, to Stacy and Nikki Reed's character, she's like, he never calls anybody bro. And, it's like, oh, and Stacy's like, yeah, he called me bro. Like, oh, bro. And it's just great. Again, Southern California, it's all there. And again, this is based on a true story, which I absolutely love about this movie. So again, for the rest of this, we watch Jay, Tony, and Stacy figure out their route and exactly what they want to do, how they want to make a name for themselves in the world of skateboarding. They are treated to magazine covers, TV spots. Stacy meets an astronaut with a wonderful cameo by Tony Hawk.
Yes.
He totally plays off of him. He actually was really fun to watch. He's in it maybe like 45 seconds, but I really like that moment in this movie with him.
I love him. Has one of the best social media profiles around.
Oh, yeah. Oh, when he was Larry David for Halloween, that was just absolutely fantastic.
He always tweets about how in public people are like, hey, you look like Tony Hawk. And like, oh, like the skater and stuff. And he'll go through TSA and show somebody his license. And, oh, Tony Hawk like the skater. I wonder what he's up to these days. And
oh, my gosh. That's
so
hilarious.
funny. Yeah, all the time.
That is hilarious, actually.
Yeah.
That really makes me laugh.
It's a really good feed.
And he's cool. I mean, I used to play Tony Hawk Pro Skater on PlayStation all the time, trying to do the 360 that he actually did do on one of those skateboard competitions. So, other than me not actually continuing riding skateboards after 1999, I still kind of kept up with it. I loved the hookups generation of skateboards, and it was the anime girls, like the nurses and the doctors and the goth chicks. And then there was the World Industries with Wet Willie and Flame Boy, and then there was Powell Skateboards, and just a whole handful of skateboard companies. And then, of course, the skater shoes, Etnies, Osiris, all of these different shoes that everybody in junior high and high school was like, oh, yeah, I wear Etnies now, so I'm totally a skater. And they couldn't do any fucking tricks on a skateboard. I could never land an ollie. I always tried to do a kickflip. Never, ever could I land anything. I used it for transportation around the neighborhood, and that was pretty much it. But it was still fun to do, So that is the breakdown of 2005's Lords of Dogtown. We'll get into a little bit of the trivia in just a few minutes after V either destroys it or tells me that they loved it. So V, why don't you take it away, since you've never seen Lords of Dogtown?
Yeah, I was really excited for this film, especially because I'd heard great things not only from you, but from a lot of other people as well. It's generally regarded as a pretty good movie, though the reviews are mixed.
Yes.
But man, I did not like this movie at all.
Really?
Not at all. I thought it fell completely flat.
Wow. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I thought the second half sputtered completely. The first part is okay. It introduces our characters and they seem to be real people. Heath Ledger completely missed for me personally.
Whoa.
I didn't think his performance was that good. It was completely unbelievable in my eyes, especially those fake teeth. He acted like Val Kilmer in a couple of roles, including The Doors, and that's all I could see is him being Val Kilmer. He didn't seem like a real person. And yeah, these guys are rebels and basically delinquents.
Yeah.
But none of the characters are really fully realized, and a lot of characters come in and then drop off, and there's some subplots that are like, oh, okay, this is happening, and then it's never mentioned again, and I'm like, okay. The women aren't used very well in this story either. Poor Rebecca De Mornay or Sofia Vergara or Nikki Reed, they don't have much to do other than act like love interests for these guys when it's convenient for these guys. And so I didn't really like that either. And the story seems to bounce around a lot. But the thing that bothered me the most is it didn't feel like it was building towards anything. There wasn't a big climax for me. It didn't feel like it built tension in the right way. And again, it's like these characters, halfway through the film, Emil Hirsch just becomes like a jerk and kind of moody, and that's about it for the rest of the film. And he doesn't really do anything else. And there's some shitty things that happen in this movie, including some betrayal, but there aren't really any consequences. And being a biopic, you think there would be.
Sure.
And so, yeah, it felt, again, just very flat to me. And I was really disappointed because I know it's based on a documentary that I've heard great things about, and maybe the documentary's better.
Maybe. I've not seen Dogtown and Z-Boys.
Yeah,
I know
me
Sean Penn narrates it.
Maybe, which is a funny connection between our two movies, actually.
It is. Not other than Emil Hirsch.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I just felt very hollow at the end of this movie. Like, well, who should I have been rooting for? Why should I have cared? And I didn't think it was good storytelling because these actors are talented.
Yeah.
the setting and creating the 1970s vibe and feel was fantastic. It felt like the 70s, very
Definitely.
much so.
Yeah.
So yeah, the storytelling and characterization of these real people just it completely missed for me.
Very, very interesting to hear because it is written by Stacy Peralta.
I know, so maybe it has less to do with the writing and more to do with the editing and the decisions of the director.
That's possible, yeah. But I'm going to disagree with you on every aspect because I remember seeing the trailer for this movie and I was like, I'm definitely going to check that out. And then when I finally did, I fell in love with it like right away. And I probably watched this movie 10 or 12 times. Like I really like the movie. I like the way it's edited. I think the cinematography is fantastic. I think the performances are great. It's funny now that you mentioned the Heath Ledger thing, acting like Val Kilmer. Now that's all I'm likely to fucking see.
Sorry.
So you just destroyed a favorite Heath Ledger role of mine. But that's fine. It's okay. Yeah, that's, hey, we're not all going to like all of our picks, and this episode's going to get even more interesting when we start discussing your movie this week.
Yes.
But I respect your opinion. Every opinion is valid, especially when you're wrong, which happens a lot, but that's okay.
Yeah,
No, it's all good. Because there's a lot of people that have your opinion about
assholes.
it as well. Yeah, and they totally were. And I think it's kind of like the whole train spotting thing, right? Like they're friends, but they don't have a respect for each other.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting because I have had friends that I definitely have had no respect for. And then, of course, there are friends of mine that I have nothing but respect for, and those are the ones that I'm still friends with. Mm-hmm. So, good on you for still being friends with me.
Yeah,
but
that's a good sign.
Yeah, right? But overall, though, the soundtrack is great. I thought Catherine Hardwicke did a great job directing this. I thought Emil Hirsch was great. I thought John Robinson was awesome. Nikki Reed, America Ferrera, and Melanie Diaz, like you said, they aren't in it a whole lot, and Nikki Reed had literally just come off of doing 13, which was Catherine Hardwicke's first film with Evan Rachel Wood, which I have seen. I don't know if you've seen 13, but it's definitely a real fucked up, twisted-ass movie. It's a very good movie. It's very gritty, very dirty, very intense. This was actually Catherine Hardwicke's second film, and she got hired to direct this movie because of her success of 13, but very, very interestingly, I don't know if you saw this in the opening credits, but David Fincher is listed as a producer on this movie.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so David Fincher was one of the producers. He was originally going to direct Second Unit, and his protege at the time was set to direct this movie. Thank the all-powerful whatever in the universe, things did not work out because his protege was the lead singer of Limp Bizkit, Fred Durst.
What?
Yeah. No idea how that happened.
Never in a million years would have guessed that, even if you'd given me hints.
Right?
That
yeah,
is
no
so
way.
out of left field.
So when I read it, I was like, this has to be fake.
Yeah, David Fincher is a very serious person.
Right, yeah. So
why would he ever have patience for Fred Durst, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s?
I know. It really was just one of those like eye-boggling moments for me. I was just like, what? Like, wait a minute. And Fred Durst did go on to direct a couple of movies, one of them being a movie with The Rock, I believe. I think it was Game Day or something like that he directed.
I had no idea. You could have told me that his protege was Big Bird and it would have been more believable than Fred Durst.
Again, luckily things didn't work out. There was doubt coming down on Fred Durst for actually, being a director for this movie. So David Fincher actually jumped in and said that he would direct the movie. He did a lot of pre-production, but then he left to do another movie. And I think the other movie was Zodiac.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, Zodiac is a masterpiece movie. That's on the list for sure. I love it. But anyway, so yeah, that was just very interesting to read that Fred Durst was in talks, and Catherine Hardwicke, we talked about her last week. She directed Twilight. She directed Red Riding Hood with Amanda Seyfried, which I did not see. And she's had her hand in a couple of movies that I just have not had a chance to check out yet. But I like her directing style. It's very in your face. It's very gritty, and that's really what I liked the most about 13 and about this movie because, like you said, it feels like this is the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
So they sold it at least, to you as a viewer that you were watching something that went down for real.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned Trainspotting because very similar. It's a group of guys that are very unlikable characters. However, despite my reservations about Trainspotting, they are all fully fledged characters.
Yeah.
They all have motivations, good backstories that are established. This movie doesn't.
Sure.
And
yeah,
so
I can see that.
You're just asked by Catherine to believe that these are angry delinquents that are rebels in the 70s because they are, right?
Gotcha.
Not
Yeah.
because there's a lot of good backstory or exposition or character building to demonstrate why. And so it was very unpolished in terms of storytelling. I wonder if someone like David Fincher, someone who had more experience, would have delivered a better movie.
It's possible.
Given the script by Stacey.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very possible. Unfortunately, we will never know. But, again, you're not going to like all of them, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But there are aspects of the movie that it seems like you did enjoy, but just as a whole, you just weren't completely sold on it. And again, that's fine. A lot of these actors were pretty young at the time. I mean, we had John Robinson. He was in one of the early Transformers movies. He's the guy that climbs the tree where Shia LaBeouf's like, what are you doing? Get out of the tree. I always thought that was funny. Emil Hirsch, I mean, Speed Racer, your movie coming up. He's been in a handful of movies that majority of the time I've enjoyed him as an actor in. I've never been like, no, I'm not going to watch it. It's Emil Hirsch. Always liked the guy. Alpha Dog, for crying out loud.
Yes, that was actually the other movie we were considering for this episode.
Yeah, that would have been a pretty good pairing either way. But, it is what it is. Emil Hirsch actually did do a lot of his own stunts in this movie on the skateboard, which is pretty cool, I thought.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that opening bit where he's going down that hill in Venice in the morning, he did that for real, and he said that was extremely difficult for him because he had to go really fast, and there was a car next to him, with the camera equipment on it, and he said that at the time he had never done anything like that, and it was really intense for him. He also flew out to Hawaii to spend time with the real Jay Adams, who had just recently been released from prison on drug charges, and he also had just gotten married too, so sounded like he was kind of cleaning up his act a little bit before Emil Hirsch got to him, but I like that, he went and spent some time with him. Victor Rasuk, who plays Tony Alva, did the same thing. Same with John Robinson. He spent some time with Stacey Peralta. And actually, all of these guys, Jay Adams, Stacey Peralta, and Tony Alva, are all in this movie. They have cameos, but they're kind of background cameos. They don't actually have any lines in the movie. But it's still pretty cool that they showed up in the movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of Heath Ledger's role, the real Skip Engblom actually wanted Heath Ledger to play him, so Skip has signed off on Heath Ledger's performance, at least.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought so. And this film is the only film that Columbia and TriStar Pictures ever produced as a conjoined production company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very interesting.
Miss TriStar.
Yeah, I know. They had some good ones. On top of the realism and the biopic aspect of this movie, all the locations, except for the pier, there's a little bit of CGI that's going on for the pier in Venice, but that's okay. Everything else is authentic locations. Stacey Peralta actually did a lot of the stunts during the wide shots when they were doing the skateboard competition, so John Robinson sat out, and it was actually the real Stacey Peralta doing all those things on the half pipes and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
There was one moment of this movie that I did really enjoy, just because it was unexpected.
Oh, yeah?
Of course, they're all in a car together, shouting, being little jerks, and hanging their head out the window, yelling at passerby. And these two older women are on the sidewalk, and Emil Hirsch is like, yeah, give me some of that gray beaver. And I was like, oh my God, what assholes. But the older women had this wonderful comeback that made me so happy. And she goes, come back when your balls drop. I was like, thank you for that. They were being such pricks.
Right. Yeah, that's a good moment in the movie. I laugh a lot in this movie. I don't really get emotionally involved. Like, I'll have to agree with you. Like, watching it this time around, it's been a while since I'd watched it. I didn't really feel like I was super worried about any of them, maybe because I've seen the movie so many times at this point. Because I remember the first time I watched it, I wasn't necessarily on the edge of my seat, but I was like, what the fuck's going to happen? Like, I think, again, the movie sells for me. Oddly enough, when I told Amy that I was going to be watching this, she said that this is one of her dad's top 3 favorite movies of all time.
What? That's random.
Super random. I was like, what? There's no way. That's impossible. She goes, no, he loves it. He's watched it so many times. I'm like, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Pretty interesting.
There's a lot of drug use, and it's definitely a dirty movie. I'm shocked.
Yeah, right? There is an unrated version that I've seen several times, and they just add fuck like 9 times to kind of make it R-rated. There's nothing else that they really changed, but it's kind of similar to a lot of unrated movies. You know, like I just actually watched Megan the other day. I have the unrated version and the PG-13 version, and the only reason why it's unrated is because they added 4 or 5 fucks. And I thought it was going to be a little bit more bloody, but Megan's just a great horror comedy. So if you haven't seen Megan, definitely check that movie out.
Yes, I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Now, Lords of Dogtown came out on June 3rd of 2005. The budget was $25 million.
What?
Yeah, that is a large budget. I want to say it's for likely locations, Heath Ledger and Johnny Knoxville, because nobody else, and maybe Emil Hirsch got a good payday. Rebecca De Mornay, I feel like she probably got, she's in the movie maybe 6 minutes total.
Right.
She probably got a decent paycheck because of her tenure in the entertainment industry. Catherine Hardwicke, this was her second feature film as a director. She actually came off of being a production designer for several movies before she directed 13 and then directed this. So the budget likely for film stock, and, because this was definitely not shot on digital. Like, you can tell that this is shot on film. And that's another reason why I like it, and it kind of brings me into it, because you get that film grain that's kind of all up in there. And a lot of it feels documentary-esque, especially when they're doing all the skateboard competitions and stuff like that. I liked a lot of those sequences. But the domestic box office was very poor. It was $11.2 million.
Yeah, this always seemed like a very independent film to me. I thought it would be around $7 or $8 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Worldwide gross was not any better at $13.4 million, so it really did not do very well. But luckily, everybody involved in this movie didn't suffer from it, because everybody else has gone on to have great careers. And that's wonderful. And, of course, rest in peace, Heath Ledger and Mitch Hedberg for their performances in this movie and in several other movies and TV shows in the past. So that is Lords of Dogtown. V, I'm really sorry that you felt like you wasted your hour and 40 minutes watching this movie, but it is what it is, and that's why we do this podcast, to introduce each other to movies that we will either love or hate. And we'll see what happens when we discuss your movie in just a few minutes.
Like we said, this is going to be an interesting episode today.
Very much so. I've done the year 2005 before, but I will break down some of my more notable, highest-grossing films of the year 2005. Number 1, Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars. Number 2, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Number 3, V's favorite Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg collaboration, War of the Worlds.
Oh my God! I was thinking about it the other day, because I really want to do Minority Report, even though it's on your list right now. What if I did Minority Report and you did War of the Worlds?
No, because you would destroy War of the Worlds, and we'd only have a good conversation about Minority Report. God, so no, I don't think so. It would be a good
that
episode.
Movie so much.
I know you really do. I don't hate it as much as you do, but I also haven't seen it in like 10 years, so it may not hold up for me anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it and decide, and, we'll go from there. Fifth highest grossing film, Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn in Wedding Crashers. Yeah. Number 6, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with Johnny Depp, which is one of the worst remakes that has ever existed.
Oh, thank God you said that.
It's pathetic. It's so bad. And I love Johnny Depp, and I know you don't, but I'm a big Johnny Depp fan, but that movie was atrocious. 7th highest grossing film, Christopher Nolan's first of a trilogy, Batman Begins.
It was only 7th. Every single time we talk about 2005, that boggles my mind.
I know. It's still like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Number 8 was Madagascar. Number 10 was Will Smith and Kevin James in Hitch, which is still a great movie. Oh, and Eva Mendes is in that too.
Yes.
Number 18, Steve Carell, Seth Rogen, Paul Rudd, and Catherine Keener in 40-Year-Old Virgin, which is still hysterical.
It is.
I remember seeing that movie in theaters, and I will never forgive the 2 guys that I saw it with, because they had seen it before, and they kept going like, "Oh wait, here it comes! It's gonna be fun! It's gonna be fun!"
I hate it when people do that.
I hated that experience, and I didn't watch 40-Year-Old Virgin for like 3 years because I was like, that movie's not funny. And then I bought it because it was $5 at Blockbuster. And I laughed my entire ass off, and I think I watched it probably like once a month for like a solid year. I was like, this movie is so damn funny. Number 19, Best Picture winner of that year, $1 Million Baby, with Hilary Swank, Morgan Freeman, and Clint Eastwood.
God, that's... It's...
Oh, you've seen it. I couldn't remember if you'd seen it.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. It's good.
It's magnificent. I saw that by myself in the theaters, and I have the DVD. That needs to come out in a Criterion edition before Clint Eastwood dies, so we can get some really cool commentary.
I need to look back and see what else was nominated for Best Picture in 2005 to see if that's aged well.
Right? Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Maybe we'll do that in just a few minutes. Number 20, a movie that I did not like, but I do like the lead actor in it. I love Joaquin Phoenix, but I do not like Reese Witherspoon. She did not deserve the Oscar for Walk the Line. That was the 20th highest-grossing film of 2005.
Music's good, though.
Yeah, music's not bad. And Joaquin Phoenix is good, but I'm just not a fan of Reese Witherspoon in that movie.
Reese Witherspoon actually won at the 2006 Oscars.
Oh, okay.
So here are the nominees, and you tell me who you would have preferred.
Okay, yeah, let's do this. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Outside of Reese Witherspoon, the other nominees were Judi Dench for Mrs. Henderson Presents, Felicity Huffman for Transamerica, Keira Knightley for Pride and Prejudice,
Hey.
a recent pick of mine, and Charlize Theron for North Country.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy. Well, I guess Reese Witherspoon had that one in the bag then.
Yeah, I guess.
I probably would have gone with either Knightley or Theron, though.
Yeah,
like,
Charlize I would have
choice.
picked. Yeah.
Yeah, North Country was a pretty wild flick.
And she was good in it.
She was fantastic. I've only seen that movie one time. I got to rewatch it, but I remember I was like, this is
intense.
This is a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, her performance totally reminded me of Sally Field and Norma Ray when she was like, Union!
Oh,
right?
yes. Definitely.
And the Academy has always liked performances like that, so I figured that she would have been picked. But they do like musical biopics too, so.
Big time, yes they do. And again, I haven't revisited Walk the Line since theater, so maybe I should give it another shot, because I don't not like Reese Witherspoon. I do like her as an actress, just that movie, for whatever reason, I could not get into her as June.
She doesn't have a lot of emotional range in the role.
Right. I
and
think that was what it was
fault.
too. No.
And now we have the new Bob Dylan biopic coming out.
That's true, with Timothée Chalamet.
Also made by James Mangold.
Hey, all right. Ford versus Ferrari.
I was just going to say, who directed your racing pick. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, getting back to the 2005 Oscars, though, or the Oscars for the 2005 movie that we're talking about.
Yes.
As we said, $1 Million Baby won. The other nominees were The Aviator.
Oh,
Finding,
that one should have won.
Yeah, Finding Neverland, Ray, and Sideways.
Wow, that is a damn good year of movies.
It really is. Finding Neverland is
year.
Pretty weak, but otherwise it's really good.
Yeah, Kate Winslet was the shining moment in Finding Neverland, especially that kid actor who would later go on to be Charlie and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Finding Neverland, I saw that movie with my mom in theaters, and I remember we walked down like, that was really sweet. That was a good movie. And like, yeah, it was good. But it wasn't like, oh, Best Picture nominee. Sideways, The Aviator, $1 Million Baby, Walk the Line. Get rid of Finding Neverland, and all four of those other ones could have won Best Picture, and I would have been happy. Although, The Aviator should have won every fucking Oscar that year, and when we do The Aviator, V, you will see why.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I love that film. I've only seen it twice because
I could not remember if you'd seen it.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. I don't think I saw it in theaters, but
I did.
I've seen it a couple times. I loved it. I think that that's the first Oscar Leo should have won.
Absolutely. Agreed 100%. And yeah, we'll get into that when I do The Aviator, because that is my favorite Scorsese film, and DiCaprio performance.
Scorsese should have won the Oscar too, actually.
It's an absolute piece of masterful filmmaking.
It is.
But anyway, let's get back into the highest grossings of 2005. We could go all day about The Aviator. That was great. So that'll lighten up the mood for your pick coming up.
Yeah.
This 22nd highest grossing film, a great sequel to the torture porn series that, V, you always say that you like the first one but don't like any of the other ones, Saw 2.
Mm-hmm.
26th highest grossing film of 2005. We just talked about it. Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Blanchett, Kate Beckinsale, Jude Law, Adam Scott, Alec Baldwin, Alan Alda, directed by Scorsese, The Aviator.
God, that's a good film. I cannot wait to discuss that one.
I can't either. Number 27, V, your pick for episode 3, starring Keanu Reeves and Rachel Weisz, Constantine. 32nd highest grossing film, a great graphic novel adaptation from, well, actually 3 directors, Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, and Frank Miller, Sin City.
Such a good movie.
So badass. 38th highest grossing film, a wonderful horror film, remake horror film, but a fantastic one and scary as hell, starring Ryan Reynolds and Melissa George. V, it's going to be on the list very likely this year. The Amityville Horror.
All I know about that film is all of the stills I've seen with Ryan Reynolds with his shirt off.
Oh, yeah.
So I fully support that choice.
I'm sure you do, just like every other woman.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, the guy's a handsome devil.
Yes.
The 42nd highest grossing film, a Ron Howard directed masterful movie starring Russell Crowe and Paul Giamatti, Cinderella Man.
A movie I believe is on my list.
I believe it is. The 53rd highest grossing film, a Best Picture nominee that year, starring Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church, Virginia Madsen, and Sandra Oh, directed by Alexander Payne, Sideways, which is also on the list.
Which is good because I've never seen it.
Great movie. I hope you do like it. We'll see. The 72nd highest grossing film, a very early pick of mine, starring, again, Heath Ledger, Matt Damon, Monica Bellucci, and a whole handful of other awesome actors, directed by Terry Gilliam, The Brothers Grimm.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we've covered that film.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Oh, and Peter Stormare's in it, too.
Yes.
And Jonathan Pryce. It's such a great movie. It's so awesome. And the 146th highest grossing film of the year 2005, coming in with $11 million. My pick for this week, The Lords of Dogtown.
Oof.
Yeah, it didn't do very well at all. And apparently not even in your eyes either. So you're part of the reason why it didn't do so well. But you saw it almost 20 years later, so you had nothing to do with it.
Well, my decision not to see it did.
That's also true. Well, I think it's time to close this chapter of this Emil Hirsch biopic and jump into your Emil Hirsch biopic. Why don't you take it away, V?
Sounds good, and mine came out 2 years later, so we are perfectly set up for this, actually.
Fantastic. Oh, that's right. It was 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This film's actually directed by Sean Penn.
Yes, it is.
It stars Emil Hirsch, Catherine Keener, Marcia Gay Harden, William Hurt, Hal Holbrook, Vince Vaughn, Jenna Malone, Kristen Stewart, and Zach Galifianakis.
Really? I don't remember him at all in this movie.
I will tell you exactly when he shows up. I was shocked. I had to rewind to make sure I'd seen him.
Oh, wow.
When I found out it was actually him. It also has a score and soundtrack written and performed by Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. This is Into the Wild. This movie is the real-life retelling of the book Into the Wild, written by John Krakauer. He also wrote Into Thin Air and Under the Banner of Heaven.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've read all of his books. I prefer Under the Banner of Heaven. That's actually my favorite book of his versus the other two. And I'll get into why in a little bit. But the book was written based on the travels and experiences and life of Christopher McCandless in the early 90s. This film opens up with a poem by Lord Byron, which I love. He's actually one of my favorite poets, my second favorite poet. Christopher McCandless was born to a well-to-do family in 1968, and he's about to graduate college from Emory University. He seems like any other normal kid, and he's talking to his parents about going to Harvard Law after graduation, but he wants to get some things in order. And at lunch after his graduation, you can tell there's a little bit of tension in this family already. And throughout the movie, we're shown a lot more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris packs up his stuff, and you're thinking that he's just going to move on to Harvard, but in fact, he takes all of his money out of his savings account for his college fund, donates it to Oxfam, leaves all his stuff behind, jumps in his car, and starts driving. Because in fact, Chris McCandless has burned all of his IDs, burned his social security card, and he wants to be a nomad. It starts off with him driving his Datsun through the desert. He's gone from Atlanta, Georgia to Arizona.
Yeah.
And this is the start of a 2-year journey where he wants to get out of society, just be out on the land, just live out in nature. He doesn't want anything to do with anybody else. He wants to break free from the chains of our culture of consumerism. He seems really disheartened with his life. And this movie is told in a couple different ways, or in a couple different timelines, I should say, because we're following Chris as he goes on this journey that's quite beautiful through America, but we're also jumping ahead to the Alaskan wilderness as well.
Mm-hmm.
And interspersed with all that is actually flashbacks of his family life narrated by his sister, who's played by Jenna Malone, who neither of us like, but she was actually very tolerable in this movie.
Very much so, yeah. Didn't have to look at her for very long.
And her voice wasn't too grating on either of us, which was good.
No, not at all.
And it turns out that not only did Christopher grow up in a very violent household, but his family was not what he thought it was. His dad actually had a wife initially, and his mother was the secretary at his dad's company when he was still married, and they had a kid out of wedlock. And it turns out that Christopher's family that he thought was this nuclear unit was actually the secret, shameful bastardization of a family.
Yeah.
And it really affects him, and that's another reason why he wants to leave. From there, though, he sees some beautiful parts of this country and meets some really amazing people. And he's just kind of up for anything. He ends up in South Dakota, working on a combine for Vince Vaughn's character, actually.
Yeah.
He meets up with some other nomads in a camper van, played by Catherine Keener, who I think that couple's great.
Yeah, they were pretty cool.
And he's just wandering through America, and I think really just looking for answers. And there's a lot of things he says in this movie that I really resonate with about how much he loves nature. And at one point he says the freedom and simple beauty is just too good to pass up. He really just wants a simple life. And it's really inspiring to watch his journey and his travels through the United States. His sense of wanderlust is always just motivates me to go out there and do more traveling and do more backpacking and hiking. And I really love that about this film, on top of the gorgeous cinematography and great score and soundtrack.
Definitely.
And all roads are leading to Alaska. The background of his family, all of the experiences he's getting on the road, everything keeps flashing forward to him living in this abandoned bus in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And for the rest of the movie, we're pretty much living with Chris McCandless on the road, on his journey of self-discovery and finding answers. And it really inspires a lot of questions for us all about what kind of life we want to lead, how much we want to be tied down.
Mm-hmm.
And those are my favorite aspects of the movie, is the questions that it asks. And I know you'd never seen it before, so I'm really interested to hear what you thought about it.
Here we go.
Okay.
Hated it.
Oh, really?
I really, look, beautifully shot, directed very well. Absolutely. 100%. But my problem is him.
Oh.
Didn't like him at all.
Yeah, that's...
Could not relate to him at all. Although, and I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine last night about this movie, it brought me back to why I hate Nomadland so much and why I didn't like Captain Fantastic so much. I look at this sort of thing, and again, I'm not trying... It's really difficult for me to not sound like a complete and giant asshole saying this kind of thing. But I find it to be absolutely irresponsible for somebody to just do something like this, to just go and live off the land and, forage and do this kind of thing. Now, having said that, I love camping. I love fishing. I love going out and turning my cell phone off and, being disconnected from the world for a few days. But it's not like I'm going to go do that for months at a time. And I think another reason why I feel that way about these three movies in particular is because of my heart condition. Mm-hmm. Your heart condition, my wife's heart condition. People that do this kind of thing are like the epitome of health, right? Like they have nothing really wrong with them.
Privilege.
Health-wise. Yeah, and the privilege of that. Which, again, totally fine. That's cool. But I just find it irresponsible. And another thing about this movie that really I had to rewind it because I was like, wait a minute, is this a flashback or is this actually happening in real time? He goes to fucking work at Burger King because he needs money, but he doesn't want money. So he says to his sister, he burns all of his money. The
hypocrisy.
Truly just, yeah, absolutely. Fucking hypocrisy, stupid mindset. I'm going to go live off the land and be this nomad and inspire people to do this kind of a thing. And because this is what we should be doing. We shouldn't be conforming to society, if you will, right? So, and again, I don't necessarily conform to every aspect of society, but I do pay rent. I have 2 jobs. I love my theater room. I love my cell phone. I love the podcast. That kind of thing, it's so I have to listen to music just about every day, right? In the car, even if I'm at home, in the shower, if it's a podcast or if it's music, whatever. Maybe it's because I am quote unquote married to technology, which the whole half world is. And I get it, go shut off from the world, go relax, go camping for a week, don't talk to anybody, don't check your emails, all that kind of stuff. Do that for a week. Don't do that thinking that you can do that for the rest of your life. And that's kind of where I fell in this movie. I love the performances by just about everybody. Emil Hirsch was great. I love him as an actor. Eddie Vedder did a great soundtrack. I hate Pearl Jam, but I liked this soundtrack.
Same! That's the thing! I've never been a fan of Pearl Jam, but I love this soundtrack.
Yeah, I actually became a fan of Eddie Vedder when he made a cameo in Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. So I had a little bit more respect for him because he could make fun of himself. But yeah, as a movie, it's beautiful to look at. Great score. Sean Penn did a great job. But I just didn't give a fuck about this guy.
Okay, so first of all, and this is the thing I didn't want to preface before either getting into this movie or even getting into this discussion. I don't like this guy either.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. When you texted me, it's such a beautiful movie, I was like, is it? Is it? It is. It is beautiful to look at. The story's not fucking beautiful, though.
It's inspiring in some ways. However, it's that classic white male privilege.
Yeah.
He came from a wealthy family. He has shit to fall back on. He doesn't have to worry about hitchhiking. It's not like he's going to be kidnapped and raped and put in a torture room. I couldn't go doing that stuff, right?
Right. Yeah,
Anytime he needs a little bit of extra money, he goes and works wherever he wants, right? Which is the antithesis of what his whole mission was, right?
That's exact. I was just like, dude, that's why I thought it was a flashback. I rewound it and I was like, is this a flashback? But then I saw his face, with the beard and everything. I'm like, okay, no, this is real time. Like, this is actually, he's working for a major corporation and he literally, it was just infuriating.
Who participates in factory farming, which is the worst way to get animals, right? Like, everything about that is horrible. And as someone who has spent their lives outdoors, I absolutely love backpacking, camping, hiking. I mean, in 2020 during the pandemic, I was averaging 200 miles a month hiking with my dog and my sister.
Holy shit.
I love being outside. And one of my favorite things to do is go backpacking because I don't have cell phone service. It's a great way to unplug.
Yeah.
However, he appreciated nature. He did not respect nature. And that was my biggest problem. Because you know what? Nature does not give a fuck about you.
No, not at all.
And
not
you need to respect that fact.
Yeah, definitely. No, completely agree with that statement.
And he's so idealistic, but at the same time, he's really rigid in his belief systems too. And so he's shitting all over people working regular jobs or being quote unquote stuck in this system. And I'm like, dude, that's why you're here, because your parents were able to have kids, right? And I don't want to be part of a giant corporate or capitalist system either. I get that. I mean, I'm child free by choice, so that is one aspect of me being kind of against the system, I guess, right?
Sure.
And there are aspects of that I really don't want to participate in. I get it. But to have been born and grown up reaping all the benefits of that system and then turning your nose up at it as soon as it's convenient for you is kind of bullshit in my mind.
Oh, absolutely. That was the one thing I hated the most about Nomadland was her character had a sister that had money that she could stay in her house. She goes, no, I'm going to go live in my van and shit in buckets. Nope, that's what I'm going to do. It's like, what the fuck?
So Chris is just full of hubris. He's so naive about how wrong things could go because there are many situations in this movie that he puts himself into that are extremely risky, especially kayaking down that river and ending up in Mexico.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh, yeah, that whole thing was insane.
And my note...
that couple.
And my note was, just because you survived, it doesn't mean you're smart. Maybe you're just lucky.
Yeah, right?
And so that's what bothered me is he came across, or he thought because he had the passion for it and the will to be out on his own and the want to be out on his own, that means that he would be okay throughout it. And that's just so arrogant and overconfident.
Yeah, 100%.
And as many of you know who've listened to us before, it's really hard for me to enjoy any movie with an unlikable protagonist.
Yes.
This is absolutely a rarity for me, which is one of the reasons why I picked it this week.
Oh, okay.
The reason why I love this movie, the reason why I chose it, is not because of Chris McCandless. In fact, it's because of the inspiration that it gives me every time I watch it. I want to go backpacking, within means, obviously. Whenever I watch this movie, I want to get back out into nature. I want to unplug a bit. And the score of it just absolutely soars and goes right into your soul. I love it so much. And the song Society that plays about halfway through this movie was actually written by a Bay Area artist named Jerry Hannon. I used to listen to him all the time out in Bolinas, where my cousin used to live.
Oh.
Funny enough, we'd go surfing all the time. She was a big surfer, and she had a house in Bolinas, and so I'd go up there a lot, and we'd surf together. That water was cold. But Jerry Hannon was a local musician, and on Saturday nights he would play a lot. I'd actually go out to Bolinas just to see him play, and he teamed up with Eddie Vedder and wrote this song Society for the soundtrack, and I got so excited when that happened. I'm really happy for that opportunity that he had, because he is a great songwriter. That's a fantastic addition to the soundtrack as well.
Yeah, it's a good soundtrack overall. I really enjoyed it.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. And the other thing that really bothers me is Chris leaves a trail of tears in his wake. He does not care how he affects people and how his disappearance affects people either.
Right.
And I think he's really just suffering from a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of PTSD, maybe some undiagnosed mental health issues.
Yeah, maybe.
And going off grid is how he decides to deal with it. Again, this is like 1992, not as many resources as 30 plus years later, right?
Yeah.
And I get that. One of the reasons why I wanted to pick this movie is similar to other movies we've talked about, like Wolf of Wall Street or Joker.
Oh, yeah.
People take the wrong message from this movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
He should not be venerated.
No.
Especially because of everything that happens to him.
Yeah.
These people who see Chris McCandless or Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Or Arthur Fleck in The Joker. These guys are not heroes. They are cautionary tales. And so many people who lack media literacy fail to grasp that, and it bothers the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And let's put a pin in that piece of it, because we'll get back to everybody seeing Chris McCandless as a rebel hero. So we'll get back to that in a minute. But I'm really glad we had an opportunity to talk about this film, because I was curious how it was going to land with you, and then how our discussion was going to be. So I think we agree about this movie.
I think we definitely do. Yeah.
And so my question to you is, do you hate the movie in its entirety, or, now that we've talked about our mutual dislike for this character in particular, do you enjoy the movie because you recognize that you're not supposed to like him?
I think so, yeah. I think I can get behind that more than just not liking the movie. Because again, cinematography is great, Sean Penn did a great job, performances are good, soundtrack's awesome. He just sucks as a person, and it's just irritating that, this is another one of those types of movies. But yeah, overall, I don't think this is not something that I will ever watch again.
Okay.
But, it's like, I've seen it. I'm glad I've now seen it. I can talk about it, with people other than here on the podcast and, see what other people think about it, because the movie has come up in a lot of conversations over the last several years, and I had never seen it. So I'm glad that I now can have a fully realized conversation about this movie in particular.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have this conversation because John Krakauer will defend Chris McCandless to the death. He is
really?
So defensive about how people are interpreting his story, because he, in fact, venerated Chris McCandless in his story and in this screenplay. And I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with John Krakauer because I do enjoy his books, especially because they're nonfiction. Very fascinating stories to tell. They're stories that I'm interested in. However, I didn't like how he put Chris McCandless on a pedestal as this folk hero. And one of the lessons that Chris McCandless learns while he's in Alaska that he writes down is, happiness is only real when shared.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if you remember him writing that down during his time in Alaska, but I actually completely disagree with that sentiment.
I don't remember that part. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, that's okay. But one of the reasons why I want to discuss it, or at least why I took the note down, is I travel by myself all the time, and some of my fondest memories are being in a museum by myself and taking my time and seeing the things that I want to see, and I'm elated when I'm witnessing these works of art. I don't have to turn to anybody and share it with them. Granted, it's nice to be with someone and travel, and I enjoy traveling with my sister and things like that, but my happiness isn't less just because I'm doing it by myself.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And that's the thing, is that even with all of his time in Alaska, I think he learned some of the wrong lessons.
Oh, that's absolutely for sure.
And then in his book, Into Thin Air, about the disaster on Mount Everest in 1996, he came across as kind of making himself the hero, which I was really turned off by.
Oh, really? Did he climb Everest?
He was there when that happened, which is why he wrote the book, and that's, I think, was a big kick to his career.
Got it.
I think the reason why I love the Under the Banner of Heaven as much as I do is it's not about him, and it's about people that you actually could relate to and respect.
Sure. Yeah.
So as we said, Emil Hirsch plays Chris McCandless in this film. He was in a very early pick of mine, The Girl Next Door.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Which is a fantastic film. He also appears in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, he does.
He's really good in Lone Survivor.
Oh my gosh, everybody's good in that movie.
True. He also appears in Milk, as you said, Speed Racer and Alpha Dog.
Oh, that's right, Milk. Yeah.
He's good in Milk
Milk's
too.
a good movie. Yeah, everybody's good in Milk. That's a good one.
I also love him in Savages as their accountant.
I don't remember him in Savages. I've only seen Savages one time, and it was, I didn't like it.
Unfortunately, Emil Hirsch has had a bit of a downturn in his career since he, in a drunken rage, strangled a Paramount executive at Sundance.
No way.
In 2015.
I did not hear about that at all.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
I thought you knew. Oh my gosh.
No, I had no clue. Whoa.
Yeah, he spent 15 days in jail, as he should have. He's since apologized profusely. He said he didn't even remember it. He went into rehab. He's sober now. But yeah, it was a very violent, regretful turn of events for him, that's for sure.
Damn. Hell yeah.
Yeah, which is why we don't see Emil Hirsch as much anymore.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Catherine Keener plays Jan, one of the nomads that he meets during his travels.
Yeah.
I love Catherine Keener. Speaking of the 40-year-old version.
Right,
she
yes.
plays Steve Carell's girlfriend in it.
She's great.
Yeah, her eBay store.
Oh, yeah.
She also stars in Get Out.
Oh, yeah, she is in Get Out. Get Out, that's my Jordan Peele movie. I did not like Us. Nope was okay. I think a lot of people are blowing that one a little bit too out of proportion, personally.
Yeah. She's also in Capote and plays Captain Phillips' wife in the movie Captain Phillips.
That's right, yes. And she is great in Capote. Capote is a great, great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah.
Marcia Gay Harden, who I love, she won the Oscar for Pollock.
Oh, very cool.
She was nominated for an Oscar for Mystic River.
That's right. Yes, she was.
Oh, she plays Tim Robbins' wife. Oh my God. I love that movie.
It is, yeah, it's awesome.
She plays one of the most despised villains in movie history outside of Dolores Umbridge. She's in the movie The Mist.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, God.
Oh, she's, oh man.
Awful.
Talk about an unhinged character.
Yeah. She then went on to play Christian's mom in the 50 Shades of Grey franchise.
Oh my gosh. Are you serious?
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
She plays the sister who isn't the favorite in Meet Joe Black with Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt.
Oh, I never saw Meet Joe Black.
It's got a good score.
All right.
But she does make an appearance in one of your most recent picks because she stars in Space Cowboys.
That's right, she does.
Yeah. So Marcia Gay Harden plays Chris McCandless's mom in this movie. William Hurt plays his dad.
Mm-hmm.
In the MCU, William Hurt played Secretary Ross, which has since been recast to Harrison Ford since William Hurt passed away recently.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot that he passed away.
Some of the movies I liked him in, or at least I liked his performances, even though I didn't necessarily like the movies. He was in The Village.
That's right. I like The Village.
It's okay.
That's pretty cool.
He stars in Lost in Space, which was a horrible remake.
Oh, boy.
But he's also in The Big Chill and Michael, starring John Travolta.
Oh, yeah, Michael's good. I never did see
really
The Big
good.
Chill.
Hal Holbrook plays the old man towards the end of this movie.
Oh, yeah, he's good.
He died in 2021 at the age of 95. He starred in All the President's Men as Deep Throat, the whistleblower, which is cool.
Oh.
He also starred in Midway, The Fog, Wall Street, The Firm, Men of Honor, and Lincoln.
Oh, very cool. He was also in Water for Elephants. He plays an older Robert Pattinson.
He does! Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. I'd totally forgotten. Oh, I loved him in that film.
I did too. I didn't like that movie until
didn't
after
either.
I saw The Lighthouse and became a Robert Pattinson fan, and I went back and rewatched Water for Elephants and fell in love with that movie.
I thought it was really forgettable, especially because I'd read the book.
Oh, okay. I didn't read the book.
And Zach Galifianakis plays the hunter in North Dakota that Vince Vaughn points Chris to and says, hey, he knows everything about hunting and curing and preparing meats. Go talk to him and he'll tell you all about it. And then they leave the bar and go talk about it and go chat outside for a while. That is Zach Galifianakis, and you cannot recognize him.
I definitely did not.
No, he does not look like Zach.
That is wild.
Yeah. And as I said, Sean Penn directed this film. He also wrote the screenplay with John Krakauer. He waited 10 years to make the film to make sure he had the approval from the McCandless family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Emil Hirsch lost 40 pounds to play the role.
Holy shit. Wow. Yeah. He was definitely thin.
He absolutely was. And the watch he wears in the movie, which is a gold, very expensive watch. Again.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy.
Big time.
However, the watch he wears is Christopher McCandless's real-life watch.
Wow.
And you said he did his own stunts in Lords of Dogtown. He also did his own stunts in Into the Wild.
Very cool.
Including the scenes where he goes through the river rapids, confronts a grizzly.
Oh, yeah,
That was a real bear.
Damn.
Or does all his rock climbing. That was all Emil Hirsch.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And the production made 4 separate trips to Alaska to film during different seasons. Everything was filmed on location.
Oh, wow. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. Brian H. Dierker was originally hired as the technical consultant for all of the whitewater kayaking scenes.
Okay.
Sean Penn cast him as Rainey after Emil Hirsch suggested him for the role.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so he plays Jan's partner Rainey in the film.
Nice.
He was a great addition. I loved both of their characters. I think they both did phenomenal performances in it.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Yeah. And at one point, Chris is down in California near the Salton Sea and goes up to this mountain that's kind of well known called Salvation Mountain.
Oh, right.
The man in the movie who shows them around is the real-life builder of Salvation Mountain. His name is Leonard Knight. So
That's
he's
pretty cool.
appearing in the movie as himself.
That's awesome.
And as I said, this film jumps around a lot in terms of timeline. The opening of this movie is actually Chris getting dropped off at a trailhead in Alaska. Jim Gallion was the Alaskan who gave Chris the ride and the rubber boots in the opening scene. He also plays himself.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
This film was very popular when it came out in 2007. It had a budget of $15 million.
Wow.
So think about that. My film cost $10 million less than yours.
Yeah.
Went all over the country, very polished. Eddie Vedder did the soundtrack. $10 million less. That's insane.
That's pretty insane. Yeah, I agree.
In the U.S., it only made $18 million, but worldwide, on a $15 million budget, this film grossed $57 million.
Wow, very cool.
And it was nominated for 2 Academy Awards.
Really?
For editing and for supporting actor Hal Holbrook.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so he got a nomination, which was very cool. This story is told in a best-selling book, and then again in a very popular movie, as I just discussed.
Yeah.
And so the bus that Chris lived in for 8 weeks out in the Alaskan wilderness became rather iconic along with Chris McCandless's folk hero status. And so a lot of people tried to make pilgrimages out to the bus because of what Chris McCandless stood for in their minds, which is a man who decided to break from the shackles of society and live on his own terms.
Yeah.
There were so many people, ill-equipped and inexperienced, who went out to that bus or tried to go out to that bus, who either died or had to be rescued by search and rescue in Alaska.
Oh, boy.
That on June 19th of 2020, the bus was airlifted out due to public safety concerns.
Some more stupid people in the world.
Yeah, and that's just a perfect example of what you and I were talking about.
Yeah.
Making this guy into something he's not, or I would say as an experienced outdoors person, taking the wrong messages from this movie.
Yes, exactly. Madness.
And so that's Into the Wild starring Emil Hirsch. If you want to watch it, it's actually free on Pluto TV right now.
Oh, cool. I rented it on Apple.
Which is fair because on Pluto TV it does have commercials because most movies on Pluto TV have commercials.
Yes, they do. I have Pluto on my Samsung TV guide. I go on there every now and then. It's not on demand, which I wish it was, but it's not. So, yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to watch it for free, but I probably would have hated it more if it was broken up into commercials.
Probably, exactly.
A movie like that deserves a watch all the way through without breaks.
Yeah, especially because it's so gorgeous. And breaking away from consumerism, and then there's a McDonald's commercial.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Perfect.
Or a Burger King commercial.
Oh, God. So, John, would you watch your Emil Hirsch biopic with your grandma?
No, I don't think my grandmother would have liked Lords of Dogtown.
Okay.
She might have watched it with me if I were into skateboarding at the time, but by then I was graduated from high school and I hadn't been on a skateboard in like 5 years. So I don't think so. My grandma was that type of movie watcher. Sometimes she would support it if I was into it, but it wouldn't have been a movie that I would have gravitated towards with grandma to watch.
Okay.
And would you watch Into the Wild with your grandma?
I would. I went camping with her a lot, actually.
Oh.
Her and my grandpa Ed. She was very outdoorsy, and so I think it would have been right up her alley.
Cool.
And she would have called him a dumbass along with us.
There you go.
Your movie is a little bit more gritty in terms of some drug use, some implied sex, a lot more cussing. Yeah. Whereas my movie, I think your parents would enjoy it.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's
possible.
rather tame.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was our very interesting discussion about Emil Hirsch biopics.
Very, very interesting. Absolutely. So curious what the audience will think of this episode.
Yes, I'm wondering if some people got kind of pissed at us because we were shitting all over Chris McCandless today.
Yeah, well, if they do, they do.
Let us know if you have a different opinion about Into the Wild and why. I'm
very curious to hear what others will have to say about this movie.
Mm-hmm. All right, that wraps up our very niche-themed episode this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. And you can follow us on all the social media at Movies You Miss Pod. John, do you want to tell everybody what we're doing next week?
Sure. It's going to be a fun one, a little bit more lighthearted. Yes. I'm looking forward to it. I actually have not seen my pick in a very long time, but I remember very much enjoying it. And your pick I actually watched right around the time that I moved out of Studio City, so I watched that one most recently. I'm choosing a movie from 1982 starring Dustin Hoffman, Sidney Pollack, Bill Murray, Jessica Lange and Terry Garr, and Gina Davis. This is Tootsie, everybody. And if you care to follow along, you can rent it on Amazon or Apple for $3.59.
Awesome.
Yeah. V, what are you choosing as a companion piece to Tootsie?
I chose one of my all-time favorite Patrick Swayze performances and John Leguizamo performance and Wesley Snipes. God, they're all so fantastic. And Soccer Channing. God, I love this film so much. It's from 1995. It has a very long title, which is not something I usually do on this podcast. I usually leave those to John. But This is Tu Wong Fu. Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. And if you want to follow us along, you can watch it for free if you have an Amazon Prime subscription.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's where I'll watch it then.
Perfect.
I remember I enjoyed the movie when I watched it about 2.5 years ago. I definitely laughed.
Okay, great.
And Leguizamo was pretty damn funny.
Yes. Well, we hope you tune in next week for that discussion. And until then, we love to close the podcast with film is a form of art. And in art, every opinion is valid, except if you think
you can just go live off the land without consequence.
That is absolutely correct. A good lesson for everybody to know.
Indeed.
All right, until next time, bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers, everybody!